Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I am your host, Andrew, and joining me tonight is Joe. We're a little light in ranks. Ron's off enjoying the Flyers game and their Dollar Dog night tonight. And Jason's feeling a little under the weather because apparently nice weather makes Jason sick when it's still late winter, early spring. So, Joe, how are you doing tonight, bud?
Hey, I'm hanging in there. I think we can consider Ron on assignment,
Exactly.
given the nature of the Flyers game tonight. I think he's representing us there for sure.
I'm sure he'll eat enough hot dogs to represent us very well, as he always does. And I got to say, from the pictures he shared on Facebook, it looks like it's a great experience out there tonight at the Wachovia Center. So good luck, Ron. Hope the Flyers do well. I hope you have a good time, most importantly of all. So, Joe, what are you drinking tonight? I'm hoping it's not a hot dog flavored beer.
It certainly is not. I am drinking SoCo and Coke, but the Coca-Cola is the Mexican stuff with the cane sugar in it, because nothing is more classic than Coca-Cola and banging on the Dodgers.
Ain't that the honest truth, man? And I got to be honest with you. I think that cane sugar Coke tastes 1,000 times better than the mass produced high fructose corn syrup Coke every time. For me, we're getting close to one of my favorite holidays of the year, St. Patrick's Day. I am drinking from Southern Tier Brewing Company, the Irish Cream Stout, and I'll be honest, I'm probably going to be drinking that again next week too. Or I might switch it up and get a Guinness. I haven't decided yet. But either way, it'll be something like that. Corned beef and cabbage is just over the horizon, and I can't wait. All right, so let's move into instead of doing free agency first, we're going to switch it up because the Phillies very much did something that is very much against the name of this show and against one of my favorite traditional promotions that baseball teams from the majors to the lowest levels of the minors have been doing for decades and decades and decades. And I'm not too happy about this. The Phillies have canceled Dollar Dog Nights. They've been running it for more than 25 years, but the team has decided that it was the worst. Those dog days of April when the Philadelphia weather is cold and the wieners are a steal are gone, Joe. Last Thursday, they officially ended the popular promotion, replaced Dollar Dogs on select days with a 2-for-1 deal at 2 April games at Citizens Bank Park. The team said that the change was made, quote, based on the organization's ongoing commitment to provide a positive experience for all fans in attendance. Some of the negatives about Dollar Dog Nights. So let's see, we've had some unruly Phillies fans chucking their favorite Hatfield meat during a game last season, and the dogs soared like cans of corn throughout the stands and onto the field. The demand for the discount dogs also led to clogged lanes in the concourse, leading to security and safety concerns. And at an April 11th game last season, turned into a Philly food fight when fans, largely good naturedly, tossed their ballpark franks into several sections, leading to multiple ejections. John Weber, the senior vice president of Phillies ticket operations and projects, said, quote, it wasn't just the throwing, it's the concourse, the crowds of everybody being at the same amount of stands, but obviously, the throwing was a little bit of a tipping point. Joe, to be frank, the Phillies don't need the deals these days to fill the stands. Now, 27 years ago when the promotion started, they were still playing at the Vet. They still sucked, and they would do anything to boost ticket sales for those otherwise dreary game nights. Because Joe, you and I have both been to games at the Vet. There was nothing about that stadium was worth going to see. It was a garbage pit. Weber said, quote, the idea originally was much more family-oriented, 4, 5, 6 people and having a discounted concession item. As it's morphed over time, it's gone more to a younger demographic, which is great as well, especially in the April-May timeframe. Aramark, which is the Phillies food service provider, noted that ahead of the 2023 World Series against the Astros, 1 out of 3 fans eats a hot dog at the park. Anytime I'm there, I'm definitely 1 out of those 3. And an average of 6,951 hot dogs were sold per game. That's enough to line Ashburn Alley 5 times. That's a lot of freaking hot dogs, man. The Phillies tried to reduce the number of Dollar Dog Nights in 2022 from 3 to 2, but received a ton of popular blowback, including all the way from the top from U.S. Senator Bob Casey. who responded to a writer from the Crossing Broad website with a statement that read, quote, "I agree, more dollar dog nights at Phillies. Let's do this." Now, this past Thursday, he took the high road, posting, quote, "Double hot dog emoji sounds like a great way to fuel up for hashtag Red October." One apparel shop in Philadelphia has already had a t-shirt made up lamenting the decision with the inscription, quote, "Rest in peace, Dollar Dog Night. Pork flu, heads rolled." Honestly, it sounds like something that Obvious Shirts would have done if that happened in Chicago. Now, here's the thing. This is not unique to Philadelphia. The Pirates are going to hold at least $6 dog nights. The Rangers sell dollar dogs at every Wednesday home game. The Twins have a dollar dog deal at each Tuesday home game. So, Joe, since Jason's not here, I know he sent you his thoughts. So I'm going to let you fire away with Jason's thoughts first, since he is a season ticket holder and was present for one of the dollar dog games last year. I know he talked about it on the show last year, but let's go ahead with Jason's thoughts first.
I sure can. I'll do my best. I will say that I really relish the opportunity to talk about Dollar Dog Night for the Phillies in Jason's place, as this is not about the fans' behavior, but about the Phillies' lack of preparation finally coming back to catch up to them. That game last year was easily the worst experience he had the entire season out of the 12 to 15 games that he went to. Every stand was a dollar dog line instead of having designated dollar dog areas. This meant that no matter what you wanted, you were in a dollar dog line. You want a drink or a pretzel, you're in that long line. No ifs, ands, or buns about it. Not having separate areas for this promotion caused severe inefficiency, and I'm glad this is gone. I'd honestly have sold that game if it was on my plan this year. We were there by first pitch and finally mustered our way to our seats at the 6th inning. Inexcusable, and do better than blaming the fans. Philly front office. You're just sauerkraut the fact that you provided a stale experience. And that concludes Jason's beef with this.
Jason, you didn't disappoint, buddy. I appreciate it. That was great.
I mean, it just didn't make a ton of sense. You can't blame the fans for this. Jason's 100% right about it. The inefficiencies there, you've made the game faster. The fans are going to miss more of the game if you don't plan accordingly for something like this.
Not only that, it's despicable to scapegoat the fans the way they are, because I know they like to say, they even said it in their statement. The tipping point was the hot dogs being thrown on the field and being thrown at other fans. Well, if that's the tipping point, then that means that there was a whole lot of other problem elsewhere, which sounds to me like maybe the fact that you were too dumb to set up a separate checkout line for dollar dog people, as opposed to people getting other concessions, clogging up the concourse. That's on Philly. That is on the teams. That is on the management group of the for the ballpark, not thinking this through, even though they've been doing the promotion for 27 freaking years. Like,
yeah, and I mean,
go ahead.
It just, to me, was very short-sighted of them. It certainly doesn't cut the mustard to make this decision the way that they did. It's funny now that the Wheeler extension's been announced, and it says, "Well, you've extended Wheeler, and at what cost?" And it was Dollar Dog Night went away. So that meme has been floating around everywhere, and it's 100% accurate. And I don't necessarily feel bad for Philly fans who are upset by this by any means. It just doesn't. You can't blame the fans for you being ill prepared for something like this, particularly. That promotion obviously got a little more popular in the last year or so when it's been more expensive to go to the game.
Exactly. I mean, how can you blame fans anywhere trying to take advantage of a deal that's there when a hot dog and a beer normally costs $15-$20? I mean, I would do the same thing. I haven't gone to any of the Phillies dollar dog nights, but I'll tell you this: if I had to stand in that long of a line to get my dollar dog, I'm getting like 5 to 10 of them, and then just going to sit down by the 4th inning, because that's how long it would apparently have taken me to get through that line to get my dogs. even if I got there early. So
Yeah, it just seems like to me that, yes, the fans shouldn't have thrown stuff, but there's a lot of precursors to that I think kind of were overlooked, obviously. Nobody loves pointing the finger back at themselves, and clearly Philly didn't do that here.
yeah,
The lack of preparation is apparent in what transpired. Again, not good fan behavior. I will agree with that idea from the Phillies management. But again, planning for this had to be better.
yeah.
You know,
And you know what really drives me nuts? They blame the fan. They want to they want to blame the fans throwing hot dogs on the field, throwing hot dogs at each other. Let's be real. This is the fan base that threw snowballs at Santa Claus. It's not like Philadelphia fans aren't going to throw something else. And really, that's any fan base. You see it. You see it in all sports and almost every team. There, it's happened where something has happened that's pissed the fans off so much that they're throwing trash on the field. And
I
at
mean, it
that
just
point,
happened in a college basketball game last week, Texas and Texas Tech, where there was a pretty. It looked worse than it actually was, in my opinion. The foul, the technical, the Texas player was ejected, but the Texas Tech fans were throwing water bottles and shit on the court to the point where they got an administrative technical, and the head coach gets on the microphone and says, "Knock the shit off because we're gonna get another technical if you don't knock it off."
yeah. And if I recall right, the Texas coach almost pulled his players off the court for a period of time because of how unruly the crowd was. It's happened in Atlanta. Atlanta fans have thrown trash on the field before. I hate seeing it. It's a very poor look for your fan base, but it's happened. I think I think you'd be hard pressed, honestly, Joe. As old as baseball is, I think you'd be hard pressed to find that any team that hasn't had it happen, except maybe for the more recent expansion teams. Like Tampa Bay maybe never had it happen because there's only 45 people at that ballpark per game, and let's be real, they throw a piece of trash on the field, and there's probably more security there than fans anyway. It probably got picked up so fast, didn't get noticed.
Right.
So. Jason just checked in. Yeah, Jason, you missed Joe hearing your piece, but Joe definitely did a great job with it. And Jason, here's to all the hot dog puns. Fantastic, dude. So, yeah, it is unfair of the Philadelphia Phillies to solely blame this on the fans when so many of the issues were on the part of the team management side. I can't believe that they would do well. I can believe that because let's face it, ownership sucks in all sports, and they, any chance that they can do to put the blame somewhere else, it's not on them. They'll do it. We've seen it for years with Oakland and Baltimore, and it's getting better in Baltimore now, obviously, but it's just disappointing to see it. It really is. So, I'm glad they're still doing at least a 2-for-1 night. That's better than nothing, but it's just not the same. All right. Shall we, Joe, do you relish any more opportunities to talk about the Dollar Dogs, or are you good?
I do not. I think we can put that on the back burner.
Jason did comment here. Middleton is an amazing owner. I don't think this came from him. Jason, I hope you're right about that. I hope it's not from ownership. I hope it's just some idiot senior level VP president, kind of thing that just was looking for an excuse to get rid of it and decided to scapegoat the fans. And I hope it didn't come from Middleton. All right, moving on. Oklahoma University softball. Joe, you might remember last summer or 2 summers ago when we were talking about the start of this streak and some of the incredible players that the Oklahoma Sooners have on that softball team. Their winning streak has finally ended. 71 games, which is a Division I record. They lost to Louisiana University 7-5 at home in front of 4,450 fans. The game went into extra innings after the Sooners rallied to tie the Ragin' Cajuns with a pair of runs in the bottom of the 7th, and then the University of Louisiana broke the 4-4 deadlock in the 8th with a pinch hitter, Samantha Grader, hitting an RBI single. Sam Rowe had 2 RBIs as well. Sidney Sanders got Oklahoma back within 2 on a solo shot in the bottom of the 8th, but the starter, Chloe Riasetto, was able to slam the door shut, seal the win. Just how dominating has this Oklahoma Sooners team been, Joe? They've won 3 straight national championships. Last time they lost was at Baylor, February 19th, 2023. They've outscored their opponents 578 to 72. They had 40 shutouts, which is 56% of their games. They beat 42 different programs. They had 46 wins over Power 5 opponents and 28 wins over ranked teams. And they invoked the run rule 33 times throughout that streak. Holy crap. That's domination right there.
Sure is. Can't get much better than that.
Nope. And Joe, I'm not going to be shocked if they win their 4th straight national title this year and put that loss behind them. But I hope the Raging Cajuns make themselves a special plaque or something to hang up, because they came into this game with the very fine record of, I believe, 10-12. So they were probably among that like negative 10,000 odds to win that game or something like that beforehand. So good for the Raging Cajuns to do it, and on the road too is particularly impressive. Plus, I'm not going to lie, Raging Cajuns is a great mascot name.
Yeah, and I mean, good on them, and congratulations to whoever bet on Louisiana to win this game.
Yeah, because there
was one person. Huh?
There can't have been many who did.
No.
All right, let's look at the free agents. Another one of the Boris clients have signed. The Giants signed Matt Chapman, 3 years, $54 million. Player opt-outs after each of the first 2 seasons. This sounds suspiciously like the Cody Bellinger deal with the Cubs, because it's probably the best Boris can get at this point, because the teams are pretty well stonewalling him. Although Scott Boras did say in a statement today that interest around Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell is, quote, heating up. We'll see.
I've been hearing a lot of. I heard some on the radio this morning that, a lot of people are speculating it's going to be a 1 year, or it's going to be just like these deals for him, Montgomery, and for Snell, something like a 1 year deal or a multi-year deal with opt-outs. Because, I mean, that's the best you're going to get at this point.
Yeah, and I feel bad that the players are letting Boris do this and hurt their chances in free agency. I do feel bad for the players.
I mean, I think what it does do, though, is I think it really sort of shows a lot of teams that if you just wait it out, you might be able to get one of these guys, and get him for half of what they were telling you he was worth 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that I've noticed with this, because originally Bellinger was reportedly looking for 200 million, and he got 80. So, and they were looking for 7-year deals and stuff like that, and that just wasn't realistic for a guy who had an MVP year, 3 down years, and then a really good year last year. So yeah. I mean, that was unrealistic expectations on Boris's part for Bellinger. I think you're going to see some teams who wouldn't have gone after these guys maybe sneak in and get one. I mean, all of Boris's position players are gone. It's just pitchers now.
Yeah. And let's face it, there's going to be a big injury sometime before opening day to a starter. It happens every year. And that I would not at all be shocked if that happens and that team then quickly signs Blake Snell to a deal. All right, moving on. CJ Cron agreed to a minor league deal with the Red Sox that included an invitation to spring training. I believe his debut is tomorrow, if I read right. So the Red Sox may have a new first baseman. We'll see. Brandon Woodruff re-signed with the Brewers, signing a backloaded $17.5 million 2-year extension that includes a mutual option for 2026. They did allow him to test free agency initially rather than tender him a contract. He is expected to miss most, if not all, of 2024 while he recovers from shoulder surgery. He's going to receive $2.5 million this year and $5 million next year, with a $20 million mutual option for 2026 with a $10 million buyout. He also gets a full no-trade clause and a hotel suite on road trips. I think that's a pretty good deal for both. he's guaranteed to walk away with 17.5 million no matter how he pitches. Or if he pitches really well, it'll be 37.5 million. So I think it was smart to let the Brewers backload the deal since he's not going to be able to do anything this year anyway. And it's reasonable escalations, I think, in the salary department for him. So, they'll have the option there. I believe he's 31 this year, 32. So, considering his age, Joe, I think this is a very reasonable deal, win-win for both sides.
You're seeing a lot of good deals for both sides, I feel like, this year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more than in years past. So it feels like players and teams and agents are kind of figuring that out, how to win for both instead of these massive deals.
Yeah, it's good to see. It's really good to see. So, and then this just came out earlier today. The Phillies and Zach Wheeler, I'm shocked by this one, agreed to a 3-year, $126 million extension, which is a holy shit extension, if you ask me. That will begin next year, runs through 2027. So he will not hit free agency this fall. With a salary of $42 million, it's going to be the most lucrative extension in baseball history in terms of average annual value. Also in the neighborhood of the richest salaries for pitchers. Remember, Scherzer and Verlander signed multi-year deals as free agents with the Mets that averaged 43.3. So he's right behind that. So he's not going to have a formal no trade clause, but he will earn that because he's going to have 10 and 5 rights. Once he completes his 5th season with the Phillies, he'll be allowed to veto any trade. So they didn't need to give him the no trade clause. Although, let's be real, Joe, the Phillies could be a dumpster fire and be hovering around the 380 win mark, and the Phillies wouldn't trade Zach Wheeler anyway. So
no, there'd be no reason.
Not that they wouldn't get some very, very good offers, but there's literally no chance of that happening, I would think.
Not right now, to be sure.
Yeah. I don't like Harper, Turner, Castellanos, and Nola could all go down. The Phillies do horrible, and they still wouldn't have traded Wheeler without this extension at the deadline. I just don't believe it would have happened.
I'd agree with you. I don't think they would send him away.
Yeah.
And let's be honest about this. Wheeler has earned this in every way, shape, and form from his performance on the mound in the last couple of years.
He signed a really team-friendly deal because he had that injury history coming from, shocker, the Mets. And he's stayed, by and large, he stayed pretty healthy with Philly, and he has produced very consistent results as the staff ace. You're right. He earned this deal. I personally think it's a little rich for my blood, but I also thought that the Scherzer and Verlander deals were utter insanity. And I think, given the injuries they have hit, I think I was right in saying that. But, Wheeler has been generally healthier than those two, and he has been very dominant as a starter. Right? A little bit down last year compared to previous years, but it wasn't a bad year. It just wasn't a Cy Young year.
Yeah, still a very good year from him, and he definitely has earned the trust of Philly Nation, and team friendly deal the first time, and more player friendly this time. I think Philly did a nice job rewarding him for that.
Absolutely. I know Jason and Ron were not upset to see that extension come through. I don't know if Jason gave any comments on it because I didn't have it in the original. I didn't have it in the original topic sheet because that deal only came down earlier today. But I know the cost is high, but I think it would have gone higher than that potentially had he gotten to walk in free agency. So. Probably, as wild as it sounds, it was probably the best deal to do right now.
Definitely.
All right, there's a couple injuries. Acuna, irritation around the meniscus on his right knee after tweaking his knee in a rundown against, I believe, the Royals. He was scratched from the lineup Friday, but he was able to take batting practice, and this is the same knee that he tore his ACL in 2021. The MRI showed irritation. The Braves did send him over to Dr. Neil Elatrash in LA on Monday for additional evaluation because he's the one who performed the original ACL repair. Right. He is expected to be okay by opening day. Saturday, he posted, "I'll be back," in all caps on social media. And Snicker said, if this was the regular season, he probably would have tried to play through it. So it doesn't sound super serious. I haven't heard anything today yet from the team, but I'm not, Joe. I'm not super concerned about it. I'm sure he'll be fine. And then this was a scary one. Dalen Lyle, he is a prospect with the Nationals. He had a really scary fall, tumbling over the wall in right center field during Saturday's exhibition against the Red Sox. He was actually taken off the field in a stretcher and to the hospital to get evaluated. Davey Martinez, the manager, announced on Sunday that he was released from the hospital with just a lower back contusion. Really glad to hear that. He is their number 6 prospect. He was trying to catch Red Sox prospect Tyler Miller's solo home run. And props to the Red Sox bullpen. They immediately flagged the Washington trainers to come out and tend to him. And what is good, he did have movement in his arms and legs immediately after the fall. So just a contusion. It sounds like he escaped serious injury. You're glad to hear it. I saw the video, and Joe, I think a lower back contusion is about the absolute best you could have hoped for from a fall like that.
Absolutely.
All right, and then Vaughn Grissom, former Brave now with the Red Sox from the trade this past offseason. He's likely now not going to be ready for opening day. He suffered a left groin strain. Manager Alex Cora noted that he was injured taking ground balls earlier in the week. This is a big one for the Red Sox, Joe. In the offseason, after they made that trade, they were hoping he was going to, quote, run away with the position at second base and be their second baseman of the future. So that's a pretty big blow to the Red Sox, at least initially. Hopefully he gets back on the field pretty quickly because for his deficiencies, mostly defensive, he does have a good right-handed stroke. And let's face it, if you've got a good right-handed stroke in Fenway Field, that's a great place. Just smash doubles off that wall all day long and pop him over the top. So hopefully he recovers quickly as well. And then Alek Manoah of the Blue Jays. After a bullpen session Friday, he felt soreness in his shoulder. An MRI was obtained showing no structural concerns. That was per manager John Schneider. He is day-to-day right now. That Manoah is a guy they're not expecting anything because he fell completely off the cart last year. But if he can be healthy and be a solid 4-5 guy, I mean, that's a better 4-5 guy than you're going to see almost anywhere in the league, as we talked about last week on the AL East preview. So this is definitely one I'm going to keep an eye on because he's also, I'm sure, going to be a sleeper pick for a lot of guys in fantasy baseball trying to sneak him in the late rounds, potentially as a really good keeper option in future years if your league plays keepers. So, this will definitely be one we're going to be keeping an eye on. Our fantasy draft is in a couple weeks, so we'll know by then whether it'll be worth trying to slip him in late.
Yeah, he didn't look too good, I think, in his first action of the spring from what I remember seeing. But hopefully he can work some stuff out because if he's anywhere close to right, he's certainly a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. All right, and then in other news that just broke today, Josh Donaldson announced that he is retiring from baseball after a 13-year career that included an AL MVP award. Finished his career with 279 home runs, 1,310 hits, and a reputation for playing with an edge and also not being afraid of offending his opponents. His best season was 2015 with the Blue Jays when he hit 41 home runs, 123 RBIs, and scored an MLB high 122 runs. He collected 23 of the 30 first-place votes, beating Mike Trout for MVP that year. I'm sorry, a guy that scores 123 RBIs and 122 runs with 41 home runs should have been a unanimous pick, in my humble opinion, but whatever. He did finish in the top 10 for league MVP 4 times. Was drafted by the Cubs originally, 48th overall pick in 2007 out of Auburn. They then traded him the next summer to the Athletics as part of the deal that brought them Rich Harden. The A's later swapped him to Toronto for 4 players, including pitcher Kendall Graveman. And that trade, Joe, is one of the trades that really started to cement Alex Anthopoulos' reputation as a savvy deal maker because he was the Blue Jays GM at the time and previously was with the Royals, if I remember right. I believe he made a lot of the instrumental moves that helped them get those World Series back in the mid-2010s. So, a guy Anthopoulos knew very well when he later signed him with Atlanta for a year. So, what do you think, Joe? Donaldson was he had a really good peak. Do you think he did enough that he's going to get Hall of Fame consideration?
No, there's too much. There was too much off the field baggage and fan baggage for him to really. His performance on the field doesn't really outshine that to me. Um, and he just couldn't really stay healthy in the majority of his career, other than that brief peak period of maybe 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, if I remember right, he spent time in the IL almost every season in the majors. And also remember, after the Braves let him go, he signed with the Twins, which turned out to be a great move by the Braves to not move up on his offer because he fell off the table after that Twins season. And remember, that was when MLB started cracking down on the sticky stuff. And he was taking a lot of shots at Garrett Cole in particular, whose rotation plummeted in the immediate aftermath. His rotation rate plummeted in the immediate aftermath of the crackdown. Then he got traded to New York, which immediately caused Brian Cashman and Brett Boone to sit down with the two players and make them hash it out behind closed doors. So definitely a guy who was never afraid on any team he ever played for to speak his mind and stick up for his teammates. I do agree with you though, Joe. I loved Donaldson. I loved his time with Atlanta. He brought a nice edge to the team. He was from everything I read, he was a good mentor for Austin Riley, getting him ready to take over third base. I agree with you, though. I think he is in the Hall of Very Good. I don't think he is going to be a Hall of Famer. I think he's got enough in his stats. He's probably going to stay on for more than a year on the ballot. But, he's got an MVP award, 4 top 10 finishes. That'll be enough to at least keep him on for a couple years. But I don't think he's ever going to gain enough traction to be a serious contender to pick up Hall of Fame nomination. And I really don't think that he would be a strong candidate for the committees afterwards.
Yeah, I'd agree. Not enough there to really motivate you to do that.
Hell of a peak, just not long enough.
No.
All right, Joe, let's move into the the NL West. We are in the National League now. Thank God. I'm tired of the American League. I like the NL much better. Joe, I will let you kick things off with the bottom half of the NL West. Lead off with the Rockies, man.
Yeah, so the Rockies last year, their record was 59 and 103. Good for obviously last in that division. Um, Jason was closest to that number at 62 wins predicted last year. You're going to sense a common thread when we announce these predictions from last year. The record change from 21 to 22 was a -6 wins, and the record change 22 to 23 was -9. Their
Oof.
depth chart going into the seasons right now, Elias Diaz and former Pittsburgh prospect Jacob Stallings at catcher, Chris Bryant at first base, Brendan Rodgers at second, Ryan McMahon at third, Tovar at short, and Montero in the utility spot. Nolan Jones, Brenton Doyle, and Sean Bocart in the outfield. Charlie Blackmon at DH. The rotation for them: Kyle Freeland, Cal Quantrill, uh, Austin Gomber, Dakota Hudson, among some others. Um, and they still have Daniel Bard in their bullpen, who's their rock star closer last year. Very often was my reliever of the week um, last season. They didn't re-sign anybody. They didn't have anybody that was up for free agency. They acquired some folks, Dakota Hudson and Stallings being two of those. They didn't lose anybody really of note, other than maybe Siebold and Servin, who were relief pitcher and catcher respectively. So some thoughts on the previous season. I mean, it just, to me, a lot of things didn't go right for them. Everything went wrong that could go wrong, and their owner looks like an idiot because he said they would win 100 games and they lost 103. So, whatever the Rocky owner says, do the opposite of that. I haven't heard any bold predictions this year, and that's probably for good reason.
He might have learned his lesson after predicting 90 plus last year. Maybe.
Yeah. One interesting thing of note with the Rockies, and I don't know exactly how to take this, But Chris Bryant was interviewed by The Athletic this week, and the article he was talking about how they were coming out of the lockout, and he felt pressured to jump in and get a team signed because there were some other teams interested, but the Rockies were the most aggressive, I think. So he rushed to kind of get a deal. Maybe thought he could do a little more research on prospects and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, you're throwing your teammates under the bus, and you're blaming the lockout for signing a deal too quickly. I'm not really sure I buy that. I mean, obviously I have a ton of feelings about Chris Bryant. Most of them are pretty obvious from previous years, but he was clearly on the downslide, and the fact that the Rockies gave him that much money just seemed crazy to me. And that was right after Trevor Story had left, if I believe.
Yes.
So, you know, you had to know what was there, and I don't know whether that's on him or that was on Boris or who that was on, but it was just mistakes all around. It just seems kind of strange for him to kind of start to say that maybe the team wasn't as good as he hoped they could be or something like that.
Their owner's an idiot. Let's be real. Anybody who looked at that roster last year and saw 90 wins is clearly smoking some of the Rocky Mountain high that they have legally out there, because that prediction was in nowhere close to reality. So Joe, Ron's prediction for this upcoming season is 62 wins and dead last. What did Jason say?
Jason had him at dead last as well, 60 wins, but wouldn't be surprised if it's worse than that.
All right, what are your thoughts?
I have them at 56. I think they're going to get much worse. They didn't get better. I just don't feel like there's a lot to write home about other than Daniel Bard, who will probably be my resulting reliever at least twice or three times because they'll be in a game or two here and there when they play the A's or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm saying 56. They didn't get better, and I think I don't know if they got worse, but they didn't get better, and I just feel like other teams in this division are much better.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. It's a team that did not improve itself. The rest of the division is very much improved, other than maybe that you could argue the Padres really are not that much improved. But let's be real, the Padres, even without Juan Soto, still have enough talent to put an ever-loving beat down on the Rockies any day of the week. I'm with you. I think they're going to go down. I'm going to go even farther than you. I'm going to say 54, only 54 wins this upcoming season. And again, last, which I think is probably not going to be a surprise to anybody when they once again finish last. I mean, the Rockies have never won the NL West, and this team is not even close to competing. Even if the Dodgers hadn't spent $1 billion this offseason that they've deferred for the next 50 years, they would still be able to put such a beat down on the Rockies that they will be no threat for any time to come. All right, Joe, how about the Giants?
Yeah, last year's record for them 79 and 82, good for fourth in the NL West. Predictions from last year, again, Jason was the closest at 78, not far off. I had 83, so I was very bullish on the Giants last year, and you had them at 74. So
those aren't bad, actually.
Like I said, you will sense a theme with closeness here. Jason was very close on a lot of the NL West teams. The record change from 21 to 22 was minus 26 wins. Last year was minus 2.
Let's remember, too, that minus 26 is because the season before that they had 111 wins.
Right.
Some regression was expected from 111 wins.
Right. So their depth chart, they have Patrick Bailey and Tom Murphy at catcher, Lamonte Wade and at first, Estrada at second, Matt Chapman at third, and Marco Luciano at short. In the outfield, Sable, Young Ho Lee, Yastrzemski, Conforto. They did add Sandoval and Soler here, so they're listed at DH. They had in the rotation, they do have Logan Webb, Kyle Harrison, Robbie Ray, who I think is he expected to come back at some
He
point this year?
he'll be back at some point in the second half of the year, probably July, August.
Okay. Keaton Wynn, Jordan Hicks, and Alex Cobb. They still have Camilo Duvall and Taylor Rogers and Tyler Rogers in the brothers Rogers in the bullpen. They didn't re-sign anybody that was on the team last year. New acquisitions: Young Ho Lee, Jordan Hicks, Matt Chapman, Soler, Sandoval, Robbie Ray, of course, and a couple other ones. Losses: they did lose Brandon Crawford. They did lose Alex Wood, Jock Peterson, Sean Mania, and some other folks. And there's a player to be named later that they owe to the Reds. They did also lose Haniger, DeSclafani, Stripling in some deals this offseason. So I don't know. Jason's thoughts were that they would be 80 wins. They made some additions that are good, but overall didn't do much to improve. So he has them at third place.
Third place in 80. Ron's pretty close to the same. He said 83 wins. He's a little more bullish on them than Jason. He actually thinks that's gonna be enough though to get third place instead of fourth. Did Jason say fourth with that 80 wins, or did he say
third?
Okay, so they're
He
both
said third. Yeah.
So they're both about the same place wise. Ron's a little more bullish than Jason. So Mitch Haniger's not really a big loss. He didn't do anything at all for the Giants last year. DeSclafani hasn't done much since that playoff run. I think they blew his arm during that run. Jock Peterson, that's a bit of a tougher loss, I think, because in addition to being a good left-handed power bat, Jock Peterson also is a guy that gives your team a little bit of an edge to it. So, that's something that'll be lost. Bat wise, I do like adding Jorge Soler to replace him, except for one thing. Oracle Park is not friendly to right-handed hitters. If you are a lefty, that is a great place to rake. If you are a righty, it is much harder to hit for power there. That said, that's another thing with Matt Chapman. But that said, Matt Chapman was able to hit really well in Oakland. And Oakland is also pretty poor for, pretty much anybody trying to hit. So I think they're a little better than last year. I think this team should show some improvement. I think I'm going to go 82 wins. I'm going to slide in between Jason and Ron. I'm going to go 82, but I do think third place as well. What about you, Joe?
Well, I had a prediction, but I think I'm going to change it because I think I was a little too aggressive on this one.
Did you say 87 wins?
No, I did not. Was significantly higher than that, but I'm rethinking that decision. So I'm going to go at I'm going to go 85.
85, okay.
And
what place?
Good for third in the division.
Third, okay. I'm just curious, what was the moonshot that you're shying away from? 92?
94.
Oh, wow. That would have been a hell of a jump. All right.
Yeah. I thought they were originally I was thinking they were a little bit better, but now that I look at some of that a little bit closer, the pitching side of it, it's a bit of a concern. But
they've got a good top end. I like the top end of their rotation. I like their bullpen, actually. I love Duvall. I love the brothers Rogers. And creeping down down towards the end of the bullpen is Luke Jackson, who you'll remember is one of the anchors of the Braves night shift World Series bullpen. Unfortunately, after that, Luke Jackson went down with Tommy John. So we haven't really seen, nobody's really seen what he has right now. And if you'll remember, during the rough years before Acuna came up and the young guys started to come up, Luke Jackson held down the closer role in Atlanta very well, despite what most people would consider maybe not the best talent to be a closer, but he shot, kind of like what we would talk about with Hector Neris. Once he moved out of the closer and became a setup man, he shined in that role because he's got great stuff for it. So I'm a little more bullish on their bullpen. Their starters, I like the top half. I'm not sold one bit on the bottom half of that bullpen of that starting rotation. Jordan Hicks is intriguing, but let's remember Jordan Hicks hasn't started in a couple years, so I'm curious how well he's going to do in his first year back as a starter. But this is a team that could surprise, so we'll see. All right, Joe, how about the Padres?
Yeah, so last year, 82 and 80. Predictions from last year. This is the one that Jason was not the closest on. You actually were closest on this one at 91 wins. They had 82. Again, close, but not very, very close.
I'll take it. We had to break up Jason's streak somehow because man, he did a great job guessing the AL West last year or the NL West.
NL West, yes. The record change from 21 to 22 was plus 10, and then the record change from 22 to 23 was minus 7. Their depth chart, they have Capusano and Higashoka in the catching spot, Cronenworth at first, Xander Bogaerts at second, Machado at third, Hae-Sung Kim at short. They have Jerickson Profar, Tatis Jr., and some others in the outfield. They have in their rotation, they have Darvish, Musgrove, Michael King, Randy Vasquez, and Johnny Brito. In their bullpen, they have Robert Suarez, Yuki Matsui, Wandy Peralta, and a few other folks. Profar was the only free agent from the current roster from last year's roster that they re-signed. We mentioned Peralta, Logan Gillespie is one. Eniel de los Santos is somebody they picked up, along with Higashoka, and Drew Campbell and Drew Thorpe are some other folks that they picked up in the offseason. Losses, they lost Garrett Cooper, who played some first base for them, I believe, in the second half of the year.
Yes.
Rich Hill, Luis Garcia, Blake Snell, obviously. Could that change? I doubt it. Josh Hader, Gary Sanchez, G-Man Choi, and Seth Lugo, among some others. Ton of losses there. Juan Soto, obviously, going to the Yankees. So a ton of pieces lost. It feels like if it were just sort of the overview is that they lost a bunch of talent. But from a prediction standpoint, Jason says big drop to fourth place. They lost Soto, Hader, and Snell, and did nothing significant to fill the gaps. 75 wins for Jason.
Fourth place, I'm assuming.
Fourth place, yes.
Okay. Ron's a little more bullish on San Diego. He's saying 81 wins, but fourth place. Yeah, I like some of what they did. I like both Yuki Matsui and Woo-Suk Go for the bullpen. Particularly Matsui. I think Matsui is going to end up the closer at some point this year. I don't trust Robert Suarez to hold that job. And Yuki Matsui, one of his big pitches that he threw so well in Japan was that nasty split-fingered fastball. That is a great pitch for a closing pitcher to have, because not only does it tend to, if you miss, you tend to miss low and bounce it. So that pass ball is always a risk there. But it's also the kind of pitch that people are either going to fall over and ground into double plays with, or they're going to miss altogether. It rarely misses up and doesn't usually get rocked. So I think that's a great pitch for a closing pitcher to have. They've got some offense still. Bogaerts is still going to be good. Machado's going to be solid. Tatis is going to be solid. But even Cronenworth should also be a solid bat. But just with everything the Dodgers have added, even the Giants, their additions, I am not loving what I see out of San Diego. I don't think they have enough pitching outside of Darvish and Musgrove to start. They really, honestly, Joe, I hate to say it, but they really need to bring Blake Snell back, because that rotation behind Darvish and Musgrove, there is really not a lot there. I do like the prospects that they got back from the Yankees in the Soto trade: Michael King, Kyle Hagiosha, Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, Drew Thorpe. Some of those guys are up now as more depth pieces, but they did get good stuff back in the Soto trade. And let's face it, Soto wasn't going to stay in San Diego. So I think they did the right thing trading him and getting as big of a package back as they could. So definitely a team building for the future. I'm going to go down to 71 wins, fourth place. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I have them dropping too. I think. See, I had a little bit. Sheesh. You know what? I'm gonna go to 74.
74. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Joe, let's talk about the teams in the division that didn't suck last year. We've got the Diamondbacks, who were a pleasant surprise, 84-78 last year, second in the West, the third wild card. They lost in the World Series to one of the greatest road teams that has ever played in playoff baseball last year, the Texas Rangers, 4-1. Our predictions last year, we were Jason and I were pretty close. Jason had a range of 81 to 83. So I guess technically the high end of his range was the closest. I will, however, argue that I had the closest, didn't guess a range at 82. So I'm very happy with that one. Joe, you weren't that far off, though, at 78. So we all did a pretty good job. We all thought the Diamondbacks were definitely on the rise, although none of us quite thought they would go to the World Series last year, I'm sure. Joe, from 21 to 22, they've gone up 22 wins and then an additional 10 wins last season. Looking at the depth chart, a lot of good they did in the offseason. Gabriel Moreno and Jose Herrera catching, Christian Walker at first, Ketel Marte at second, Eugenio Suarez at third, Geraldo Perdomo at shortstop, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. in the outfield, along with Alec Thomas, Corbin Carroll, and Randall Grichuk, and Jock Peterson, new signing at DH. Good pitching. Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez is the top three, closed out by Brandon Pfaadt and Humberto Castellanos. Paul Sewald's closing, along with Matt Castro, Kevin Ginkel, Joe Mantiply, Ryan Thompson, Luis Frias. So they brought back, Gurriel they extended. I loved the signing of Eduardo Rodriguez and Jock Peterson to that roster. I think Grichuk was a good signing as well. Actually, Grichuk was a re-signing, if I remember right. I think I put that in the wrong spot. And then picking up Eugenio Suarez from the Mariners all they gave up was Sebi Zavala, who was a backup catcher, and Carlos Vargas, who didn't really have a spot. I think they made a great deal there. Yes, Eugenio Suarez is a bit strikeout prone, but he adds a little bit more pop to that lineup, which they definitely needed. Ron's thoughts is that they're going to hit 84 wins again and finish second and grab a wild card spot. What'd Jason say?
Jason said, thoughts on last year, the Diamondbacks had a magical run. They only get better from here. Second in the division because he hates to say it, but the Dodgers are a beast. The Diamondbacks, he says, get to 89 wins and a wild card berth.
And second place, obviously.
Yes.
What do you think, Joe?
You know what? I'm going to go higher than I originally thought on this. I'm going to go 91 wins.
Okay.
I am a buyer in what they've created and grown with. I think that Jock Peterson, I said this years ago, is underrated in his value. He's a huge asset from a team leadership standpoint. I think the Suarez deal, and as long as you have Galen and Kelly, I mean, you're going to win 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
When they're on the mound in a series. You just are.
And having Eduardo Rodriguez as a number 3, that's strong.
Yeah. This is a really, really strong rotation. You really like what you see here. And they have a ton of potential to really make this a little more competitive than some people think.
No, I completely agree with you on that. And one thing I want to highlight with the Diamondbacks, I'm just pulling up their prospects right now. They have a strong farm system. This is a team that has done their rebuilding right, and all of their young guys that are coming up now are just showing that. A guy to watch out for, I would say probably year and a half, 2 years out. Yumin Lin, he's their number 4 overall prospect. He's in Double-A this year. He's going to be a scary good guy. Christian Mania is probably going to get a shot at some point this year. He's a right-handed pitcher. Slade Sassini is going to get a shot as well. That's their 13, 14 guys, and their top 30 is just loaded with good pitching. From the rookie levels all the way up. So they've got the good stuff coming. I'm very bullish on the Diamondbacks this year. I'm with you. I love Jock Peterson. He single-handedly ignited Atlanta's fan base and brought them into believing that team back in 21. I don't know that Atlanta wins the World Series without Jock Peterson, or got over the Dodgers hump in 21 without his heroics single-handedly carrying that team through the NLCS. I will always love the guy. Joe, I'm with you. I'm going to be a little more on the bullish side. I'm going to go one better than you. I'm going to say 92 wins, second wild card. Second place in a wild card, obviously. This is going to be a good Diamondbacks team for quite a while. I love the offseason additions, and they did it without giving up a ton of good talent anywhere. So you got to watch out for these guys because the Dodgers are going to age. And if the Dodgers don't continue to work on getting young or keep bringing in high-priced free agents every year, they're going to gentrify out. And I think the Diamondbacks are positioned to be able to take a chance at stealing that division over the next couple of years, especially if that pitching stays healthy. And then speaking of those bums, I mean the Dodgers. They went 162 last year, good for first. They were eliminated by the Diamondbacks in the NLDS 3-0. In the predictions last year, this is a split. I said 99 and Jason said 101. So we both missed by a game in each direction. Joe, you weren't far behind. You had them at 96 to 97 wins. Ronnie said 97 last year. So, we were all pretty good on that one. From 21 to 22, they went up 5 wins. From 22 to 23, they went down 11 wins, which sounds terrible, but you have to consider when you win 111 wins before that and still win at 100 next year, dropping 11 to stay in triple digits is still pretty damn good in my book. Looking at this ridiculous depth chart, Will Smith and Austin Barnes catching. My boy Freddie Freeman at first base had to whip out the first ever obvious shirt I ever bought, the Frederick Freddie shirt. Mookie Betts at second base, but maybe also at shortstop, maybe in the outfield. Who the hell knows? Mookie can play everywhere. He's like KB, but he can stay healthy. Chris Taylor will also get time at second base as well. Max Muncy at third, Gavin Lux at shortstop, Kike Hernandez being the other all-around the field utility guy, along with Miguel Rojas. In the outfield, Teoscar Hernandez, James Outman, Jason Hayward. DH, of course, Shohei Ohtani, and he's not going to be pitching this year, but he will be back pitching next year. The starting rotation, Yoshinobu Yamamoto was the other huge signing they made. Tyler Glasnow, Bobby Miller, James Paxton, Emmett Sheehan. And remember, they've got Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw recovering from injury. Both will be pitching at some point this season. Kershaw, I believe from what I read, probably June, July is the earliest. Buehler should be pitching a little bit before that, I would think. In the bullpen, Evan Phillips, Bruce Argraterol, Alex Vesia, Ryan Brasier, Joe Varland, Joe Kelly. I always love seeing Joe Kelly. Old coworker of mine, Kelly Redmond, popping on Let's Go Yankees. Kelly, you missed AL East last week. We did talk about the Yankees. It's going to be a good year. Check out the archives for that one. I think you'll like what we had to say about the Yankees. We don't think they're going to win the division, but we're pretty bullish on their chances of slipping into a wild card spot. So re-signing, they brought back Kershaw, Kike, Hayward, Joe Kelly, Ryan Brasier, and then the big acquisitions of Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Paxton. Also, we're making some trades to get Tyler Glasnow and Manuel Margot, who they later flipped as well. Margot was sent to Minnesota, if I remember. Yeah, sent to Minnesota, which cleared up his spot to bring Kike Hernandez back. All right, and then not really too many losses. JD Martinez, Julio Urias, and Med Rosario were probably the biggest losses that they had. They brought back a lot, and Lance Lynn. They brought back a lot of their good guys again. So, Joe, Ron's thoughts. I'm going to read this exactly how Ron said it. They're going to go 102 wins, take first place in the divisions, and lose in the playoffs because they'll choke.
Well said.
I love it, Ron. What did Jason say?
Jason says division winners again because of these insane additions they made. 107 wins. Hopes he's way off on that, and another early exit in the postseason.
107. Okay. Oh man. All right. So 107 for Jason. Hold on. I get that. What are your thoughts, Joe?
You know, you could have all the talent in the world. Your manager is still Dave Roberts, and I don't trust him. I truly don't. The only thing that I'm looking forward to in the Dodgers this year is when Bueller comes back and they have Jackson Ferris open and have Walker come in. Because the Ferris Bueller trade off there is just going to be beautiful.
Yes,
in
it will
the
be.
in the box score the next day, Ferris and then Bueller. So
it
I'm
better
looking
happen
forward
at
to that.
least once.
The only part of this that I'm looking forward to from the Dodgers standpoint. I think you have to look at the fact that Gavin Lux is coming off of an ACL tear, I believe, from last year. He missed most, if not all, of last season because of that. So I'm just not sure how good he's going to be. And as we've seen from other teams lately, you can spend all the money in the world; it doesn't guarantee anything. So I don't trust Roberts to make the right decisions at the right time um, as a manager, and I just feel like they're extremely old. Glass now is kind of, he could be really good or he could be really bad. We just don't know what he's going to be yet. Coming off of the injury last year. So, I think there's a ton to like, but there's also a ton to kind of make you go, I'm just not sure what they're going to be. So I'm feeling less less bullish on them than just about anybody probably, and I'm going to have them at 92 wins.
92. That's
Yep.
still first.
Still first by a game. I think one of their series at the end of the year will determine that division. I don't like picking them to win this division. I prefer to pick the Diamondbacks, but I've got to be a little realistic and know that they'll probably do just enough to get there and lose in the first round because that's what they do.
It's true. I'm definitely a bit more bullish than you are. I'm not trusting the bottom half of this division to put up enough resistance to stop the Dodgers from at least another 100 wins. I'm going to say 104. I'm going to sit right in between Ron and Jason again. But I don't trust this team in the playoffs. So here's the thing. We don't know what Yamamoto is going to do in the playoffs or over the long MLB season. Tyler Glasnow has not stayed healthy in a couple seasons. He's been on and off the IL here and there. Paxton doesn't scare me. Walker Bueller, he's coming off Tommy John. This is not going to be a great year. No. Clayton Kershaw, if it's not the regular season, he doesn't scare me either. Regular season, the dude could throw a perfect game if it weren't for his idiot manager pulling him. And he got hurt later in the year anyway. I don't think taking away his chance at history, even though, let's face it, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, pretty close to it. But stopping him from getting something into Cooperstown early did not save his arm one damn bit. They have a quirky manager who makes questionable decisions, but that said, this is a lineup that can mash. Will Smith can mash. Freddie can really mash. Mookie can mash. Muncy can mash. Shohei can really mash. This is one of the most potent lineups in the National League. I'm not going to say the most. I think you know who I think the most potent lineup is, and
More
until
on that
somebody,
in a couple weeks.
yeah, until somebody hits more home runs than they did last year, I think they hold that title until they're knocked off. That said, this is the second best team in the National League and one of the best rosters in baseball. So, yeah, I'm going to sit with my prediction of 104 in first place, as much as it pains me like hell to say it out loud. All right, let's move into the dark horse picks for the NL West. Ron said the Giants were his dark horse pick. Joe, what did Jason say?
Jason, he feels that any team other than the Dodgers is a dark horse, so he's going with the Diamondbacks on that.
I like how he tries to leave himself open to say, "Oh, but I could have meant them next year."
Right.
Yeah, what a Jason thing to do. Joe, who's your dark horse pick?
My dark horse is the Giants. I like enough of what they've done to feel like they could catch fire and make some headway in this division. I mean, this is a team that's 2 years ago was 107, 111 wins. It was right there for them. So the fact that the teams play a few less games in their division now, I think that creates some room for the Giants to make a move. That would be my dark horse pick.
I'm going to go with Jason here. I'm going to take the D-backs. I don't think this is their year, but could they be like the 21 Red Sox, come out of nowhere, catch enough fire, and surprise everybody, and then cling to hold on to it by the end of the year? I could see it. I would like to say the Giants. I don't think they have enough this year to do that. I think maybe next year I would be more bullish on saying it, but I like the Diamondbacks pitching more. So that's why I'm going to give my dark horse pick to the Diamondbacks.
And I think if I had more confidence in the Dodgers and I had them at a higher win total, I would consider the Diamondbacks a dark horse. But because I have them so close already, that's why I'm going Giants.
That's fair. That's very fair. All right, folks, that is it for the NL West this year. Next week, we have the NL Central. So Joe gets to shine and talk about his Cubbies. Hopefully my brother will be free to hop on and talk about the Cubs as well. Zach, I'm going to have Jason reach out to you. We'd love to have you back on to talk about the Cardinals. It's the NL Central is always a fun one because I follow them just enough because of my brother to actually have a decent amount of knowledge as to what's going on in the NL Central. So I'm excited for next week. So we'll see you guys then. Any of our other fans listening in on Spotify or wherever else, if you are an NL Central fan and would like to join, shoot us an email, dollardogsandbeer@gmail.com. Let us know, or shoot us a message through Facebook Messenger, and we will be delighted to either get you on the show, or if you just want to give your thoughts for one team, whatever, we'll be happy to read them on air. All right, guys. So audio recordings are available on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much anywhere else you can find a podcast. We are live on YouTube, Facebook Live, as well as Twitter. Merchandise is at redbubble.com. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer. Our Twitter page at DDAB_podcast. All four of us are on Twitter as well. I'm at PyroLord314. Jason's at JRicker300. Joe's at JoltonJoe30. Jolton Joe 35. Ron's at Dipner Ron. We are presented by Dark Arrow Podcast and sponsored by Baron Barbershop over in Mannheim. Guys, may your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold, and we will always support Dollar Dog Night on this podcast. Have a good night, guys.